I love Americans. I love my country. I love being an American. But the truth is that we are wildly ignorant about what happens in the rest of the world.
I agree.
Because our water is always clean. Our electricity is always on. We have, medical equipment and doctors who are trained to the nth degree. We always have reliable Wi-Fi. Our life is really not more difficult than what are we eating for dinner and what are we watching on Netflix? That's essentially, I'm not saying that there aren't a few million people who are stuck in poverty, and there are a few million people who are so fabulously wealthy that they fly on private jets. The other 298 million of us really only worry about whether or not we're eating the right food, what we want to eat, and what we want to watch, how we want to entertain ourselves. Outside of the boundaries of the United States, that's not how most other countries think. Most other countries, when you knock off the list, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, France, and Germany, when you knock off some of those leading economic powers, power isn't like electricity isn't guaranteed. Clean water out of a water fountain isn't guaranteed. You get hit by a car on the street, an ambulance isn't guaranteed, right? That's how the rest of the world operates. So as the world started to globalize in the early 2000s, and we started to have the things that we buy in the United States are manufactured in China, the things that are manufactured in China, like the clothing that's manufactured in China, actually is manufactured and dyed in India. And then, so the cotton in the United States is sent to India, where it's spun and dyed into cloth, and then it's sent to China, where it's sewn into t-shirts that are then sold back in the United States, just as an example of globalization. As that really started to take off in the early 2000s, so did the war on terror. So the United States became, exponentially more interested in fighting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan than maintaining its economic power as a developed nation in the rest of the world, in the globalized world. Well, China didn't participate in the global war on terror. So for the 20 years that the United States was investing, trillions of dollars into killing, extremists, China was investing trillions of dollars into modernizing and becoming an economic powerhouse modeled after the United States. That's why when COVID happened, COVID was the real tipping point. Not because of the pandemic, not because of, what's the word that they called it? Immunosuppressed or immunocompromised people. That's not why COVID was so important. COVID was so important because when China shut down and the United States shut down and Europe started to shut down to deal with the pandemic, we all woke up to the reality that China was at the center of all of our globalization because of logistics and manufacturing. That was a secret that China was keeping for 20 years. They had spent so much time and effort and money making sure that they were in the middle of the hub and spoke model for everything from shipping to manufacturing to chip development and chip design and everything, technology, cellular technology, etc., medical technology. They had worked very hard to be there. Well, COVID shined a light on the fact that China was at the center of everything. And when the United States saw that, when Donald Trump, who was president at the time, saw that, he said, we need to basically start a trade war with China. We need to diversify American investment. The Biden administration, who came after Trump, saw the same problem and actually maintained the same policy. So the world woke up to this idea of globalization, and that started this domino effect that led us towards conflict. When China was able to create power in the shadows, it didn't encourage any of its partners to violence. Well, once China could no longer operate in the shadows, it needed its partners to be violent again to take attention off of China. So that's when you saw Russia invade Ukraine, a close partner to China. You saw North Korea start launching more missiles. Now you're seeing Iran support more aggressive attacks into Israel, right? I'm not saying China's the mastermind, but what I'm saying is what you have here is a bipolar power bifurcation in the world. The United States is the current superpower. China is the #2 largest economy in the world, trying to become equal to the United States. China knows that the only way it becomes equal is if it can distract and discourage the United States from gaining further ahead in the race. So China's there to support anybody who doesn't support the United States.